Hello, friends. Today is Authenticity Day. I'm very excited here at Association Transformation. Andrew Chamberlain, my authentic co-host. How are you, sir?
Yeah, I'm good. I apologize if there's a bit of a delay. There is, isn't there? There's a bit of a delay because where am I? I'm in a Marriott in Manchester, so I'm on the road this week. So I apologize if I'm a bit fuzzy and a bit blurry. I also apologize if the
All right,
Wi-Fi
you
is
just
not
play
great.
along. Yeah, you just play along. Just look pretty. That's why we have you here. You just play along. Because I'm excited to chat with Jennifer Jensen. I mean, she's the queen of authenticity, founder of Authentic Leader, and this is going to be great. I know that Jennifer, welcome. I don't want to overwhelm you or here all at once, but I'm excited. Um, Tell us a little bit about kind of how you got into this. I know you have a lot of for-profit corporate experience, and here at Association Transformation, we focus on the support and evolution of nonprofit and association leaders. But there's crossover, of course. But how did you get into the authenticity game?
There definitely is crossover between the two because it's all about being your authentic self as a leader. And so I got into the game. I've done years of progression in my career and was a project manager for quite a few years. And there you have no authority, but all the accountability to be the leader and motivate your team. So that adds a whole nuance to learning about who you are and how to interact with your team and how they respond. And so that's what
So
got me into this.
it's funny you mentioned project manager. That's one of those, just like you say, it's the heavy title. It's in the middle of everything, and I guess you're just the cheerleader. But when you wrote Developing Authentic Leaders, and I know your book is just about a year old. Congratulations
Thank you.
on your book. What's the aha? Like, what should I take from that and give to my volunteer leaders? Again, not paid volunteer leaders
Yeah.
at the nonprofit level. How do they find their authentic self?
I think the key and the foundation to being authentic is being self-aware and understanding who you are and why you respond to the situations you do and how you respond.
Does that mean you have to be critical? I mean, does that mean you have to be confident or you have to be critical? How do you embrace self-awareness? Andrew, are you self-aware?
Oh, do you know what? I am. This is going to sound inauthentic, but I am massively self-aware to the point where sometimes it's like a white noise. It's just I'm constantly uh, mindful of how I feel, what I'm thinking, how I'm being perceived in the eyes of others, how I'm behaving, how I'm modeling behavior. Oh my God, it's to the point sometimes where it's exhausting. It's exhausting sometimes.
Yeah.
It
So
is,
yeah, yeah, I'm acutely
All right.
yeah,
self-aware.
So
yeah,
hyper self-awareness can equal anxiety. What
yes.
does the right, where does the right amount of self-awareness come from? How do you tap into it?
For me, the right amount is being conscious that I can overanalyze and taking a step back and going, hey, let's just not overanalyze this. Let's just take it down a few notches because I can be doing that 24/7 if I allowed myself to. But with self-awareness, you have to be aware of that. And so you need to get that balance. And even in leadership, we have to have that balance where we are not overly confident, but we're confident enough because you don't want to come across arrogant, but you want to come across as that you know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And I'm guessing this is not an equation. This is not a
No.
recipe. This is going to be a different journey for each individual leader. And in the boardroom, in the association space, we often have individuals serving in these very important roles because they were willing, they were available, they made it through the ranks. They're not necessarily there because they are a shining beacon of leadership or authenticity or whatever it may be. They're there because they're there. How do you, after they're already in that position, how do you start them down a journey of self-awareness? I can't just say be aware by being aware? Like that, how do I get them going? What's the real path for that?
Well, I think there's a few different ways. A lot of people use DISC to understand who they are. I am certified in Lumina Learning. And so what I appreciate about them is that we look at your overall, like your four colors, like DISC, then we look at your eight characteristics, and then we take it down to your 24 aspects or qualities. And then we look at all those 24 qualities, which is
Sorry,
really
I'm watching
fascinating.
Andrew's face. I'm watching Andrew's face react.
It's like a maths equation. I'm trying to work it out in my head. I'm like, right, oh my God, this is yeah. But then it needs to be this. It needs to be this layered because people are this
Yeah,
layered. You know, you can't. We're not
exactly.
one dimensional. Absolutely. So it needs to be this complex. Absolutely.
And then you have to look at those 24 qualities and we break it down to what are you in you're at home when you're most comfortable? What are your qualities there? Then we look at what are your qualities that you present to the everyday world and what you want society to see. And then we also look at your those qualities when you're stressed. And so how do you respond so that you become more aware of what you look like across everything in
Mhm.
your characteristics? And it's really fascinating to see people go, whoa, I didn't realize that.
So I have a question.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a believer in these, personality characteristic maps, and all the different forms they come in. But some of our leaders don't come from this world and may consider it a little bit voodoo. Do you have leaders that will see the results of their tests, their colors, their letters, their characteristics, and say, "That's not me"? I mean, is there a level of disconnect from who the test may say you are?
Well, actually, it's interesting because I have somebody who said, this isn't me at all. And the rest of the team looked at it and said, that's exactly you.
Oh no, that's a
So
different kind of
it's,
red flag.
yeah, so it's a big reality check. And with Lumina Learning, I've learned that about 90% of it is pretty accurate. Because every time I've talked to somebody who's done it, they're like, no, it's about 90% accurate.
Yeah. And on the executive search side, we might use those tests before someone is
Yeah.
offered the job. But when you're working with volunteers, um, often, like I said, they receive these positions, they are elected, they are nominated. So you're often given these opportunities to empower them with this knowledge after they're already in the role. You can't necessarily place them based on what their scores come back to. How do you help someone read those results in a way that is productive, that they see how to
Mm-hmm.
then be better or be different? Instead of it just being great, I took the test, check the box, done. How do you move forward?
I typically do a debrief session with everyone so that we go through it and explain it so they understand. And it's very positive. It's not a negative thing. And it's also understanding the approach and with the responses when we're overstressed. Then I can guide them to say, hey, if you're doing this, tap into some of your strength you in those situations. And so that really supports the leaders and the volunteers. So you can, and even as a leader, if you've done this, you can start to see it in your own team where their strengths and weaknesses are and what they're potentially suppressing that are hidden treasures that they should pull out.
Oh, oh, talk to me about hidden treasures. So, and maybe this is where authenticity comes from, something that people don't often consider a strength. They think of it as their quirks or their vulnerability. So they, to your word, suppress it. That's interesting. That's interesting.
So with hidden treasures, those are things that in your comfort zone, when you're at home and relaxed, you tend to pull out and you suppress them for work. And you really should be bringing those out at work to support you. And it could be various reasons why you suppress them. It's like if you're working at a funeral home, you can't be an extrovert. That would be the wrong place to do it. So you got to suppress that.
That makes sense. Yes, I don't think I think that job description for funeral home would probably contain some requirements for decorum and introversion.
Yep.
I,
But
it
do you
makes me
think?
think about the job descriptions we have for our leaders. Go ahead,
Yeah,
Andrew.
no, I was gonna make the same point actually, Elisa. I think I think you've highlighted a potential weakness in the kind of how our industry, the non-profit sector, identifies potential leaders. Is that I'm not sure we're really thinking about the people, the person, for want of a better phrase, the person specification, if you like, for the job. I think we're so pleased that somebody has willingly put themselves, volunteered or been voluntold that they're going to be in a leadership position that
Yeah.
we don't really give enough, I think, credence to sort of recognizing and matching volunteers to volunteer leadership positions. Um, and I think that's a definite sort of shortcoming in terms of not just how we develop our leaders, how we engage them, how we identify our future leaders as well. I think there's a shortcoming in how we understand those dynamics around personalities.
Andrew, I'm so glad you mentioned future leaders because it's one of the reasons I wanted to talk to Jennifer and have her join us was her concept of the invisible leader. And
Yes.
maybe it's these hidden traits. How do we start how as the staff, how as the executive of the organization, how should they be scouting for that future leader? What are those traits or some of those invisible characteristics that we can look for that may point out someone who's really going to be a great leader?
I think you're going to want to not just look at is the individual fantastic at what they're doing? Are they hardworking? Because they may be hardworking, but they may not be the fit for leadership.
Mm.
And that's not
Mhm.
something that they really are interested in. And I've seen that a lot where people are promoted when they're just not given the mentorship or training to be the leader. And I think you want to look for somebody who is strategic in their thinking and showing that they are visible and strategic and that they can move forward. But also, you want somebody who is going to understand and adapt to what's happening around them because we're in a very complex environment in the workforce right now. And so they have to be adaptable.
So maybe this is too simplified of a question, but so are leaders born or are they made? And maybe that's where balance we come back to balance.
Mm.
But there has to be some minimum requirements for a leader.
Yeah. And leaders are not born. Some have more tendencies toward it, but they're not born. They are made. Like they can be coached and mentored and advised to be the leaders that they are meant to be. And I think everybody has the ability to do it. It's just how much work do they have to put in to make it happen?
Yeah. So we've started this with a discussion on self-awareness. And, to Andrew's point about that, I'll just call them insecurities that come with self-awareness. Can you be a leader, a self-aware leader, without also then being self-accepting? Can you be an insecure leader, or do you have to find the confidence in the self-acceptance in your strengths and weaknesses?
I think you can be. Sorry, I'm gonna to answer that first. I think you can be an insecure leader. Of course, you can. I walk around every day in my skin, and I'm an insecure leader. So you can do it, absolutely. In fact, I'd argue a degree of insecurity isn't a bad thing. I mean, that's not. I think I think
Yeah.
again, it's shades of grey, isn't it? Um, it's like when you're taking a test and people say, "Oh, it's good that you're nervous. It means something." You're not, and actually having a balance of I think, and Jennifer, you know better than I, but I think having a balance of characteristics rather than just saying, "Oh, well, these are good, these are bad, have all of these, have none of those." I mean, that's just far too simplified, isn't it? It's just far too, it isn't realistic, is it? It isn't realistic. I can't walk around only being amazing all the time. Although, I mean, no, most of the time I do, obviously.
No, it's just too
But
tiring. It's
you
too
know,
tiring.
but it is, sometimes I got to sleep. But I think having just recognizing that things like anxiety and insecurity and sometimes a lack of self-confidence isn't necessarily a bad thing. They're just platforms in which we can continue to develop. And we can continue to look at how we engage with people, how we work with the people that we manage or that we lead or that we need to serve and respond to. I think there needs to be, and I'm sure this is a lot of what the work that you do, Jennifer, particularly around the piece around the invisible leaders. It's recognizing actually that we are the whole of our of all of our characteristics, and we shouldn't, I think, be dismissive of some over the others. That's just my personal view of the world, for what it's worth.
No, I 100% agree with you. Because you would think, oh, Jennifer's got it all together. No, I don't. I walk around with imposter syndrome half the time, going, who am I to do this? But at the
Hmm.
same time, I go, why not me? And
Yeah,
so it's
yeah.
changing
Hmm.
that
Hmm.
conversation. But it causes me to be a lot more humble
Yeah.
than arrogant.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I
Well,
like that.
I mean,
Yeah.
Jennifer, welcome to the Association Transformation family. Not only now as a guest, but hopefully a listener. We've tapped
Yeah.
into and touched on the imposter phenomenon, imposter syndrome a couple times in past episodes. I'm glad you brought it up. You also mentioned that leadership and the marketplace and the professional world has changed quite dramatically in the last several years. There are characteristics that have arisen as more important. I think back to COVID, where leaders needed to be more empathetic and maybe even demonstrate vulnerability. Now, where we are there different characteristics that are more necessary than maybe 5, 10 years ago?
I think it's enhancing the empathetic because we have to be. You're dealing with 4 to 5 generations in the workforce. So you have to change. And another big thing you have to do now is be adaptable because we're dealing with hybrid work environments. We're working with the changing dynamics of technology.
Yeah.
AI is like lightning speeds. It's hard to keep up. And you have to deal with the gender differences in the workplace. So these are all things that daunting as a leader to have to deal with all this.
Yeah, this leads me to these burnout conversations and the pressure of leadership that we talk about, because that balance is almost an impossible search that's never ending
Yeah.
for this balance. And knowing that maybe it's better that you have to put in the work, that leadership is not natural. You're not born with it. You have to put in the work. So it's a matter of training and commitment and time. Um, Again, I want to translate this into both kind of the executive side and then the volunteer leadership side. How every board, they're made up of a group of people. So there's going to be differences, strengths, weaknesses, the otherwise. Let's say that you don't currently invest in the professional development, the leadership development of your board of directors. How do you broach that conversation in a way that they don't see as an attack on their leadership? How do you get them to see it as a positive and not an insult when you want to start doing training and doing leadership development for a group?
You sell it as we're doing this for to help you out and to be an example to the leaders that are coming up that if you're doing this training, then they're going to be wanting to do the training as well so that they can be more effective. And it's a leading by example. But a lot of organizations aren't willing to invest in their middle management team, which is really sad. And that's why I'm
Yeah.
trying to fill that gap.
Well, I
Yeah.
think that's a really common
Are
issue. I think,
are the,
Yeah.
I'm a big fan of train the trainer and kind of make. Go ahead. Sorry, Andrew, you paused for a sec.
oh, sorry, Lisa, I was just going to I'm just reiterating what Jennifer was saying there, which is, and I think it's a real um, a common thread across the non-profit sector is this reluctance to invest not just in middle management. I know you spoke, Elisa, about volunteer leaders. I feel there's a reluctance across just generally to invest in our volunteers, our boards of trustees, our boards of directors, etc. And I think that's symptomatic of a bigger issue that we that we've been talking about for such a long time now. But yeah, I think you've hit something there, Jennifer. Quite significant for our sector.
Well, it's across the board everywhere because I work in Calgary, Alberta, so the energy sector is huge and notorious for not investing in their leadership.
Mm.
And that's a hard
Why?
market to break
Why?
into.
Why is that? Why do they? Oh, because I asked, but it seems incredulous because we always in the non-profit sector we always talk about, oh well, in the for-profit sector where they will make, they'll spend money to
Yeah, I
make
thought corporate
money.
does it right.
So yeah, it doesn't, I mean, clearly that's not the case. You're saying it doesn't make any
No,
sense to me. Why would they not be doing it? What's their rationale? Do you know?
it's still the old boys club. And
Ah,
so we've done it this way. We're going to keep doing it this way.
right.
Well, and that's why I asked about people who don't respect their test, because I think there is some
Yeah.
ego and machismo is probably not the right word, but you have these long-term executives or old school uh, leaders who are in their position because of their confidence or their name or however they've gotten there, and they don't want to do this. They don't want to have the mirror held up,
Yep.
and you can't drag that horse to water. Someone who you have to first want to be a better leader. And I imagine there's a lot of kind of heads batting against the wall when those who may need it most are the least likely to ask for it, given some of their less less positive characteristics.
Exactly. It's a
So
struggle.
so your book almost a year old, you have a 1 year old book baby. What is the next? What are you writing? What's the next, lock of leadership that you're going to unlock for us?
Still working on that. People are going, Jen, you need book two. And what they're giving all kinds of suggestions of, make it a case study book.
Oh,
And I'm like,
okay.
that's interesting. This one was a labor of love, and I know that I needed about a year break from it.
Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So, can we make a request? I know that you have, you're on podcasts all over the place. You do all your public speaking and coaching, but can Little Old Association Transformation, your new family, can we make a request that at least a quarter of the case studies come from something other than just the corporate world?
Oh, my word, yes.
Okay, can we go for a half? How about half come from the not corporate world?
We can,
Can we negotiate?
let's talk about that. When I start writing it, let's talk about it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Because again, there's this mythology that nonprofits should follow the magical path of corporate and for profit, that
Mm,
they've got it all
mm,
figured
mm.
out. And I think each side could learn from the other.
Yeah.
They're different. Every leader's different. Every opportunity is different. But okay. All right. I like where this is going. Let's settle on a third. We'll just settle on a
Then on a
third.
third. Okay.
Nonprofit, association, NGO, case studies that are not okay. All right, deal. All right, Jennifer Jensen, I like this. Thank you. This will be good. What are we looking 2026? I mean, you said labor of
Oh,
love. So how's
yeah.
this going?
This is going to be a slow process because the last one it took a lot out of me. And
Yeah.
it was a long, I was writing almost every week and took 6 weeks or 6 months off to
Wow.
write it fully
Wow.
and still had some
Gosh.
left over to do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. And
Well,
maybe we
I
should have
mean,
you back did you self-publish? Did you self-publish?
Yes, I self-published.
Okay. 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 This is a whole other topic that I want to get into. There's a lot of
yeah.
kind of
Hmm.
people in Andrew in my space who, put books out and it's like, is this just a really expensive big cardboard business card or, does this really advance the industry and how much of a personal burden is it? How much of your life are you sacrificing? So we're going to have you back for the self-publishing panel.
Okay.
And you can use that as a chance for therapy. We'll all be together on that. But authentic leadership, it's never not going to be important.
No.
And we are so thankful for the work that you are doing in every organization that you get a chance to work with.
Yes.
We will
Hmm.
continue to advocate for and encourage our clients and our peers to invest in this type of professional development. Any last thoughts for those who may be considering kind of that jump into leadership? What's your advice for someone who's not yet in leadership but seems open to it?
I'd say go for it and start understanding who you are as an individual, because that will really support you as you get into leadership. But also make sure you start doing a lot of networking to build those connections and to build that visibility into who you are as a leader.
There you go. Well, I love that as
Yeah.
a final point because it's not just you in a
Yeah.
silo and how you feel about yourself.
Yeah.
No.
It's the universe in which you are existing. So thank you, Jennifer, so much. Andrew, enjoy your Marriott in some
Do you
town
know,
somewhere.
it's been upset for the last, as we've been recording, my screen just keeps popping up and saying your connection is unstable. And I thought, God, never a
You
true
are
word has been
unstable.
my
That's
computer
true.
be never a true word has been spoken in jest.
Yes. Yeah. You are unstable, but we love you for it and enjoy this conversation about authentic leadership. Thank you both. And until
Thank you.
next time, put your members and your mission first.